Absolutely shocking tornado footage from southern Michigan yesterday. This was really unexpected and not really in one of the primary threat areas. That is somehow how weather unfortunately works out. There were fatalities with this particular storm. Here are the tornado reports in that southern Michigan event. Quite shocking. It's completely possible this is all one track tornado. The evidence is not there yet. The surveys will be conducted, but Union City is right here. So, yes, a shock for that part of the world for this time of the year. There were other tornado reports yesterday. These were in that 10% risk area. A lot of these were clustered around and south and a little southeast of Tulsa, which is located right here. So these tornado reports, of course, will need to be resolved to see how many of these were actually from the same supercell. I strongly suspect that we're looking at something like this, but I don't know for sure. If you remember correctly, that 10% chance did something like this on the Outlook yesterday, a little far north. We did have some tornado warnings in southwest Missouri, most notably for southern Springfield and northern Nixa late last night, but thankfully, at least as far as I can tell, we haven't had a confirmed tornado report, but we'll see how that goes when the Weather Service takes a look at it. So an interesting day. In fact, if you look at their severe weather reports for all over the country, there's a cluster of hail and wind reports there in western Florida. There were some tornadoes down here from northeast Texas into southern Arkansas. There were a lot of hail reports. That's the purple here, 1 inch or greater, especially when the thunderstorms have been initially developed in Nebraska and Kansas and Iowa. And, of course, there's those tornadoes there in Michigan. So an interesting day, to say the least. Will this be repeated today? Probably not to the same severity, but there are some areas that need to be watched. Here's the visible satellite loop showing this storm that's taking its time moving through the central U.S. The leading edge of that squall line is visible right there. If we overlay the 500 millibar flow, a couple things are interesting about this. First of all, this disturbance is splitting in two. So here's the northern part of that trough, and then here's this cutoff part that's going to develop. And this is going to have implications for severe weather threats on Tuesday and Wednesday. But for now, like yesterday, we really just have a fast-moving flow, maybe a few little ripples here and there, a little short wave showing up, nothing real definitive. If we look at the outlook for today, though, there is, just because we have strong jet stream winds and enough instability, 2 areas of level 2. You could almost connect those together, I guess. And this hasn't changed a lot from yesterday, but this includes Columbus, a little bit of Cleveland, perhaps on the western edge of that. Pittsburgh, certainly a lot of West Virginia, and then from Memphis south into Mississippi and back into around the Austin area. Those are the primary areas for severe weather today. And if you're looking for a tornado threat, there is one. It's a 5% chance up in that area, again, around Pittsburgh and in parts of eastern Ohio. If we look at Nadocast for today, they do put a little maximum there around that area, and also a little 5% chance shows up there south of Little Rock. So that's worth noting for today. CSU also kind of delineates this little tornado area down here, not quite as exuberant about it, but also ramps up the Pittsburgh threat a little bit to 5%. So it looks like that area up there will have to be watched a little more carefully, but there might be a little sleeper area down here for tornadoes. And there's going to be some wind damage, I think, up here too. Even though the wind damage is highlighted here, other guidance I looked at does suggest that that could be a little bit of an issue in Pennsylvania and also up into New York State as well. Turning the page to Sunday, not much of a threat. There's a marginal 1 out of 5 threat, basically in North Carolina and a little bit of the adjacent states. And then if we go ahead to Monday, again, marginal risk in the deep south, Louisiana south, little south of Little Rock and Arkansas, Jackson, Mississippi included in that. That's for Monday, and that's verified by CSU's Outlook. In fact, they paint a very small tornado risk in that general area as well. Let's take a look at Tuesday. Now, here's the 500 millibar flow. Remember that cutoff system I was telling you is kind of leaning back this way? Here now it's kind of come out into the plane. It has the same lean. If this can be a negative tilt trough, this would, I think, enhance the situation a little bit more. As it is now, it is slightly positively tilted, but still, we have a wind maximum coming out on the eastern side of this, and this is coming into what I think would arguably be a little bit more unstable air than the event we just had yesterday and even today, with Cape values according to the EPS showing up, around 1,500 in Missouri, and likewise through parts of Oklahoma and Texas. So that's something to be watched. They're still painting a picture at the Storm Prediction Center of severe weather on Tuesday that runs from almost northern Illinois, most of Illinois, most of Missouri, a good chunk of Oklahoma. Dallas is included now, Oklahoma City, let's say around Springfield, of course, St. Louis, Springfield, Illinois, Kansas City maybe on the edge of that. And that has been consistently showing up. That's probably a storm chase day for me, personally. And then the CSU severe probabilities for Tuesday include 2 bullseyes, and this is any severe weather, but 30%. So in other words, here on the right is what I just showed you the slide before. That's the SPC's outlook. This one is just enhancing that a little bit more, going up to 30% in central Illinois and parts of northwest Arkansas. And yeah, we can go ahead to Wednesday, turning the page again, and look at what looks to be a more linear event, just the way it's shaped. But this, again, runs from around the Pittsburgh area, Pennsylvania, includes Columbus, Cincinnati, Frankfort, Kentucky, most of Kentucky, really, Nashville, Memphis, all the way down into the northern part of Louisiana. And also the CSU outlook for Wednesday does include that. It's maybe suggesting this is going to wait a little bit, whereas the SPC has backed that outlook up a little bit. And then we'll just sum up. Here's the supercell percentages for the next 7 days. Sums up everything I just showed you, basically. And that puts, western Illinois or western Missouri, eastern Kansas, and everything south of there under a fairly high probability of getting that. It's a little more subdued the week after that, the 14th through the 20th, confining itself to areas south of central Arkansas, bringing down to East Texas, a lot of Louisiana. Even more subdued than that the last week of the month. But again, when we start getting out that far, I put a little bit of a grain of salt with that because I do think the patterns can change significantly enough to reintroduce that to parts of the South especially.